Staring down the mountain of misery. Loneliness is my only company. Whoa, when you gonna come home, Cindy? I wanna know, when will you be homeward bound? Cause I believe in you and the love we once knew. Cindy, oh yeah. Singing is my first love. More than the rapping, more than the musicianship. I am a singer first. First and foremost. Started out singing in church with my cousin Chi Chi. The roots being steeped from my legendary uncle, the Reverend Charles Taylor. My legendary grandfather, Sam Bluesman Taylor, who started out in gospel and then eventually went to blues. And of course, my beautiful mom, Sandra Taylor. My cousin Nornie, my aunt Karen. There's so many of us that we stem from the world of gospel first. And it's crazy because way before I started just even singing in church as a kid, I was just singing at home with just listening and mimicking my mom with all the records that she played. So Chaka Khan and Aretha Franklin and Natalie Cole and Nancy Wilson became, my first high-end vocal influences because my vocal range started out as just being all-out soprano, first tenor, kind of like a young Michael Jackson. And of course, as my voice started to change as I got older, it developed into a 3-octave falsetto, whereas, certain things that I would start to combine my sound with, I would end up listening to singers that were more adjacent to my style. Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Prince, Lionel Richie, damn near all the Tims, especially Dennis Edwards and Ollie Woodson. Ollie Woodson especially, because Ollie Woodson, Buddy Miles, and Al Green and Stevie Wonder are probably the first 4 of the main vocalists that really had an influence on my style in terms of riffs, phrasing, and soul. Because what those 4 singers have in common is that they can go from a stinging, raspy, soulful, nature voice to a high-end falsetto. It's a lot of different things that were going on there. So those were the first 4 stronger influences out of all the guys who I listened to. Johnny Wilder from Heatwave is another one. Ted Mills from Blue Magic. I've just really studied a lot of singers. Definitely in New Edition, Ricky Bell, Ralph Tresvant, and especially Bobby Brown had a strong influence on my vocals in terms of singing and being able, and because I'm a dancer, one of the hardest things you have to know how to do is to sing and dance at the same time, and that's an art that's rarely practiced these days because you see a lot of people lip syncing and having auto-tune and they can't sing and dance at the same time. So with all the training that I put myself through along with my family, as a kid, we were taught from the gut, that old school vintage way where you had to learn how to breathe and sing. So that's where a lot of that comes from in terms of the way that I perform now. Backgrounds are very essential. I am a stickler for harmony because I come from a family that sings harmony. The first group of Taylors that started out, it was me, my grandfather, my Uncle Bobby, and my mom. So, I was always like before my voice developed, I was always the one singing the real high-end stuff. And then as my voice started to change, I found a way between singing the second tenor and the baritone, and even bass as I got even older with my voice. So I learned how to just sing full range from bass all the way to the first tenor, and 3 octaves every now and then on a good day. I could sing that high. But those are some very important fundamentals that I think is missing from today's music, not just in R&B, but even in rock, because Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin and Freddie Mercury are my favorite rock singers. Steve Perry from Journey. I mean, I listened to a lot of these cats because there was always something to learn from the way they sung. Even the simplicity, funk, soul, pop nature voice of Lionel Richie. Because, listen to Lionel Richie's Commodore stuff and you hear him riffing and being soulful. And then as the 80s came along, he learned how to strip down his sound. J.T. Taylor from Kool and the Gang was definitely a strong influence. Tommy Jenkins from Cameo. These were some guys who I feel that never get their credit. Ronald Isley, and especially El DeBarge and even James DeBarge and Randy. Because, what people don't realize is that with the DeBarge brothers, the majority of them, they all have the same tone. So, you know, I picked up a lot from each brother, and even their sister Bunny, as far as my phrasing and my falsetto and going into a natural is concerned. Like I said, there are so many singers to listen to. I encourage a lot of younger and older singers who are just now getting into it to study as much as you can. That was the whole thing with me, because when I studied certain groups like the Temptations, I didn't just study the lead singer. I studied everybody. So Melvin's bass, Paul's baritone, Otis's second tenor, to Eddie Kendrick's first tenor, and to David Ruffin, Dennis, Ali, or whoever was singing at that time. Same thing with the Jackson 5. I mean, Tito's bass, Jermaine's baritone or second tenor, depending on the situation. Jackie's falsetto, Marlon's second tenor and baritone, and Randy and Michael always trying to find a way in between the other five or four brothers. So it's so much to learn. Like I tell people all the time, another one of my favorite singers is Bobby Smith from the Spinners, and of course Felipe. You know, those two guys were you know, there's a certain thing in Bobby's voice. You know, once there was a boy and girl, boy said I love you so. You know, it was like a smooth thing about him, and then Felipe would just take it home. It was like a real great combination. Same thing with the OJs. I mean, you listen to Walter, you know, he always starts off real smooth. You know, you're my darling, darling baby. And then, you know, Eddie just comes in. You're all that I need in a woman, and as long as I live. You know, that whole, you know, it was like a great combination between those two singers. Same thing with the Dramatics, Willie McGee and Ron Banks. You know, God bless both of those fellas. Again, long story short, there are just so many singers I still study to this day, even in my years in the business. There's always so much to learn, so I pretty much grasp everything that I can from whom I'm studying, whether it be current or old school. I mean, there's so much to grow as a singer, and I'm just glad. So I encourage anybody who's learning how to sing, study the classics first. That's my biggest piece of advice. Study the great singers like Sam Cooke and Luther Vandross and Bobby Womack. I mean, these were guys that had developed their style, and they knew what they were doing, because a lot of today's singers, they don't go back and look. They don't really put in the homework. They just look at whoever's out there, and then they borrow that concept, and then they never grow as a singer or do nothing with it. Very few singers in today's world grow that much. So I encourage anybody who's watching this YouTube video that I'm doing right now, study the classics, the old school, vintage, whatever you want to call it. Study those cats, because that is the way to get better as a singer. LAW Singers 101.